You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. C.S. Lewis. Have you ever found yourself weighed down by the mistakes of your past, wondering if they've robbed you of the future you were meant to have? It's easy to get caught in the web of regret, replaying past decisions and fearing that they've defined the rest of your life. But here's the truth: God isn't finished with you yet. The mistakes you've made don't determine the greatness that lies ahead. In fact, every misstep, every wrong turn, has been a lesson preparing you for what God has in store for you. You may feel like you've messed up beyond repair, but God's grace is greater than any failure. Your past doesn't disqualify you from the blessings and purpose God has planned for your future. So, stay with me, because this journey isn't over. It's just beginning. Let's walk forward together, trusting that God is leading us towards something far greater than we can imagine. If this message resonates with you, please like and leave a comment below. Share your thoughts and let's keep encouraging one another as we move forward in faith. The enemy's strategy often involves tempting us to dwell on the past, urging us to replay the mistakes and regrets that haunt us. Yet, God's purpose and plan are not found in what lies behind, but in what lies ahead. C.S. Lewis wisely remarked, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This perspective encourages us to focus on the path before us, rather than the regrets that linger behind. Consider the symbolism in your daily drive. Your windshield is broad and clear, providing a vast view of the road ahead, while the rearview mirror is small, offering only a glimpse of what you've passed. This design isn't accidental. It's a reminder that life is meant to be lived forward, not backward. Why then do we persist in peering into the past, revisiting the what-ifs and if-onlys that no longer serve us? Could it be that the pain of our past mistakes feels safer, somehow more familiar, than the uncertainty of the future? But what if, like the driver who fixates on the rearview mirror while speeding ahead, we're setting ourselves up for disaster? Lewis also stated, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us, we are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." This resonates with the fear that holds us back. But to move forward with clarity and purpose, we must relinquish our grip on the rearview mirror of our lives. What if today you chose to release those what-ifs, trusting instead in the vast possibilities that God has placed before you? Your future, after all, is not behind you but ahead, waiting to unfold as you step out in faith. In life, there are moments we wish we could erase, mistakes that haunt us like shadows we can never escape. But let me ask you this: how long will you let those past failures dictate your future? C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." Isn't it time to stop fixating on that rearview mirror, replaying those regrets? Many of us fall into the trap of believing that blessings are reserved only for those who walk a perfect path. But tell me, who among us has lived without fault? God's love is not conditional on our perfection. It isn't something that wavers based on our mistakes. In fact, His love is unwavering and eternal, reaching out to us even in our darkest moments. Lewis also wrote, "Though our feelings come and go, God's love for us does not." This is the essence of divine love. It holds us even when we stumble. It embraces us despite our flaws. God's promise is clear: His love for you is not fleeting or fragile. When He chooses to love, it's a love that endures forever, through every wrong turn and misstep. So, why continue to burden yourself with the weight of the past? Instead, embrace the truth that God's love remains steadfast, and it's never too late to turn around and walk in His grace. Reflecting on the past can often become a heavy burden, like driving with your eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, constantly revisiting old wounds, mistakes, and disappointments. But what if you considered, as C.S. Lewis once suggested, there are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind? Can you allow yourself to let go of the past, to release the grip of past hurts and failures? Every time you step into a car, notice the stark contrast between the expansive windshield and the small rearview mirror. Isn't this God's subtle reminder that while your past has shaped you, it does not have to define your future? Lewis also spoke of the importance of progress, saying, Getting over a painful experience is much like crossing monkey bars. You have to let go at some point in order to move forward, so why do we let our lives be dictated by what lies behind us? Whether it's a moment of regret, a relational breakdown, or a mistake that haunts you, ask yourself, is it worth holding on to? Or is it time to embrace the journey ahead? God, in His infinite wisdom, reminds us that where we are headed is far more significant than where we have been. The choice before you is clear. You can either remain stuck, immobilized by the past, or you can trust in the promises God has for your future. As Lewis said, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Trust that God has the power to guide you forward, leaving the past where it belongs behind you. Your future is filled with divine promises. And just because your past was unfair does not mean your future has to be. God is ready to lead you through to a breakthrough, but the decision to move forward is yours. Imagine for a moment that the weight of your past is like a heavy chain, holding you back from moving forward. You know it's there, pulling you down, but what if you realize that the very act of waking up each morning is a clear message from God? C.S. Lewis once said, "There are far better things ahead than any we leave behind." This isn't just a comforting thought, it's a profound truth about the nature of life and faith. God wakes you up each day, not to dwell in the shadows of yesterday, but to step into the light of tomorrow. Have you ever wondered why He keeps giving you another day? It's because He isn't finished with you yet. The past, with all its pain and regrets, is meant to be a teacher, not a place of residence. Lewis also reminds us that we are what we believe we are, meaning that if you believe your past defines you, it will. But if you believe that God has a future filled with hope and purpose, then that is the path you will walk. So, when you feel overwhelmed, trapped in a season of doubt or despair, consider this: what if the challenges you face are not meant to bury you but to elevate you? God has brought you through so much already. What makes you think He'll stop now? Lift your eyes, for what lies ahead is not just a continuation of what has been, but a new beginning, shaped by His promises and your willingness to trust. Isn't it time to let go of the past and embrace the future He has in store for you? In life, we often stand at a crossroads, holding on to the past with one hand while yearning for the future with the other. But ask yourself this: how can you fully embrace the future if you're still shackled by the chains of yesterday's regrets and failures? C.S. Lewis once said, "There are far better things ahead than any we leave behind." This profound truth beckons us to release the grip on our past and anchor our lives in the hope and promise of what lies ahead. You see, the past, with all its hurts and disappointments, is like a shadow. It may follow you, but it holds no substance. Lewis, in his wisdom, reminds us that getting over a painful experience is much like crossing monkey bars. You have to let go at some point in order to move forward. God has already brought you through the trials of your past. It is done, finished. Yet, how often do we cling to those moments, replaying them in our minds, allowing them to weigh us down like an anchor, preventing us from moving forward? Reflect on this. How many times have you let the past define you, holding you back from the future God has planned? It's time to release those burdens. Everyone stumbles, everyone falls, but those moments do not define you. They are mere lessons, not life sentences. Lewis also reminds us, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Your future is far more important than your past. The rearview mirror is small for a reason. What's behind you is insignificant compared to what lies ahead. God is calling you to trust in His plan, to anchor yourself in the future He has promised, and to let go of the past that no longer serves you. So, will you continue to let the past hold you back, or will you step forward into the future God has prepared for you? The choice is yours, but remember, the best is yet to come. That windshield is for vision. A man without a dream or vision shall perish. That windshield is for somebody going somewhere. That windshield is for somebody up there trying to make another move. Now, if you keep looking in the rearview mirror, you'll never know how close you are. You'll never know. Get out of the rearview mirror. If God got you through it, it's done. Move on. Anchor your life in your future. Don't anchor your life in your past. because that'll always tether you and pull you back. Anchor your life in your future, and that'll give you the power to move forward. See, if you focus on the things of your past, you'll start to get defined by your past. Your past is going to define you. What do you mean? You'll always be thinking of yourself as, oh, I'm the guy that was divorced twice, or I'm the guy whose kid ran away or really messed up, or I'm the guy that made that stupid decision, or I'm the guy that has that addiction and I struggled with it for so long, or I'm the guy that had his house foreclosed on and it's just so hard. I'm the guy, and pretty soon your past actions define you. Listen very carefully. Your past is either going to define you or you can define your past. It's up to you. You say, what do you mean? Define your past. Did you know that it's not your past that messes your life up? It's how you define your past. Imagine standing at a crossroads in your life, where the same storms of adversity blow against you as they do against another, yet the outcomes diverge dramatically. Why is it that one couple emerges stronger while the other crumbles under the weight of the same burdens? Is it really the circumstances that dictate our fate? Or is it something deeper within us? C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." This quote invites us to consider how our perception of trials can either tether us to despair or propel us toward hope. When you reflect on your own challenges, do you see them as insurmountable obstacles or as opportunities for growth? The Bible reminds us in Romans 8 verse 28 that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose. But how many of us truly believe this when we are in the thick of our struggles? Lewis also wrestled with the problem of pain, arguing that God whispers to us in our pleasures but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Have you ever considered that your current suffering might be a divine invitation to grow, to trust, and to redefine your future? The story of Joseph in Genesis 50 verse 20 illustrates this perfectly. What the devil meant for harm, God has turned for good. This is not just an ancient story, but a living testament to the power of God to redeem even the darkest moments of our lives. Who will we align with in our moments of trial? Will we allow the enemy to sow seeds of despair, or will we cooperate with God, who is tirelessly working to turn every setback into a stepping stone? Lewis encourages us to look forward to the good in life, not backward to the evil. Echoing the words of Paul in Philippians 3 verse 13 to 14, where he urges us to forget what lies behind and press forward toward what lies ahead. Are you living your life through the rearview mirror, clinging to past failures? Or are you gazing ahead, trusting that God has something greater in store for you? Remember, it's not the number of times you fall that defines you, but your relentless determination to rise again, each time with a firmer grip on faith. Lewis believed that God gives us time, and who gives anything to anyone gives a little of himself. Perhaps it's time we give our future to God, allowing Him to craft something beautiful from the broken pieces of our past. The choice is ours. Will we let go of the past and grasp the future that God has promised? Or will we remain shackled by the memories of what once was? In the midst of life's tumultuous journey, the Apostle Paul offers us a profound lesson. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Paul, a man who experienced both triumphant highs and devastating lows, chose not to dwell on the past, whether it was the glory of past victories or the weight of past sorrows. Instead, his focus was resolutely fixed on the future, on what lay ahead in his journey with Christ. But what does this mean for us today? How can we, in our own struggles, find the strength to look forward when the past seems so overwhelming? C.S. Lewis, a man who grappled with his own doubts and pains, once wrote, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." This is not just a call to optimism, it is a call to faith. It's about trusting that God has more in store for us, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. Have you ever found yourself trapped in the shadows of yesterday's pain, unable to see the light of tomorrow? Lewis challenges us to ask ourselves, what am I holding on to that I need to release? What past victories or failures are keeping me from pressing on toward the higher calling that God has for me? As Paul pressed on, so too must we. We must keep our eyes on the horizon, knowing that God's plans for us are not confined to the past but are constantly unfolding in the future. When we press on, as Paul did, we align ourselves with the divine purpose that God has set before us. And in doing so, we find that our struggles today are but stepping stones to the greater victories that await us in Christ. Stay focused on what's next, for in Christ, the best is always yet to come. Paul, one of the most influential figures in Christian history, offers us profound wisdom in navigating the trials of life. He acknowledges that our journeys are often marred by hardships, moments of deep personal trauma, and interactions with difficult individuals that leave us feeling broken. But in these moments, Paul doesn't simply ask us to recognize the pain. We are challenged to reflect on how we respond to it. Are we allowing ourselves to be consumed by the past, trapped in a cycle of regret and bitterness? Or are we using those experiences as a catalyst for growth? C.S. Lewis, a renowned Christian thinker, once wrote, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." Lewis, much like Paul, understood the futility of dwelling on what cannot be altered. He believed that while the past shapes us, it should never define us. Instead, Lewis encourages us to fix our gaze on what lies ahead, much like Paul's exhortation to the Philippians: press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Philippians 3 verse 14. But how often do we find ourselves caught in the rearview mirror of our lives, endlessly replaying scenes of pain and failure? What if, instead of being immobilized by these memories, we asked ourselves, what has this taught me? How can this pain serve a greater purpose in my journey toward God? Paul's analogy of the rearview mirror and the windshield is particularly poignant here. The rearview mirror, small and limited in scope, is there for occasional glances, reminders of where we've been. But the windshield, expansive and clear, represents the vast opportunities and the hope that lies ahead. Lewis would likely ask us, as he did through his writings, to shift our perspective. Has this pain brought you closer to understanding God's grace? Has it deepened your faith? So, what will you choose? Will you let the shadows of your past dictate your future, or will you press on, embracing the new mercies that await each day? The choice, as Paul and Lewis remind us, is in how we use our experiences to fuel our pursuit of a life that reflects the love and purpose of Christ. Remember, the past is a place of reference, not residence. It is a guidepost, not a hitching post. Let it inform you, but never let it imprison you. Paul actually tells us that in order to do this, he says, forget your past. Paul clearly references his past many times in the Bible. He says, "This is who I was, but it's not who I am. My sin, my failures, those things don't define me. It's the grace of God that defines who I am and who I will be." Paul says, forget your past and look forward. I don't stay fixated. I don't play it over and over and over again in my head, and I don't pretend like it never happened. I glance back, realizing that my rearview mirror is smaller than my windshield, and my past is past. My future is before me. One day, this is all going to be gone and not matter anymore. What are you doing to make the future the best it can be? I want to encourage you today to have a windshield mentality. Stay focused on what's next. In the journey of faith, have you ever paused to ponder why God leads us through seasons of difficulty? C.S. Lewis once remarked, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." This sentiment aligns perfectly with the progressive nature of God, who desires to elevate us from one level of glory to another. The scriptures remind us that God takes us from glory to glory and from victory to victory, not just as a promise but as a process. What does this truly mean for you and me? It means that our current struggles, no matter how overwhelming, are not the end of our story. Instead, they are the stepping stones to something far greater that God has in store for us. Consider the words of 1 Corinthians 2 verse 9, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, No mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love Him. This verse invites us to lift our eyes beyond the present and to trust in the unseen future that God is crafting. Can you imagine what lies ahead? God assures us that what is coming is far better than anything we have left behind. Yet, in our human frailty, we often cling to the past or become paralyzed by present fears. But what if, as Lewis suggests, these very trials are the tools God uses to prepare us for the greatness that lies ahead? When you feel lost or uncertain, remember that God's plans for you are always forward-moving. The horizon is bright, not because we can see it clearly, but because God, in His infinite wisdom, is guiding us toward it. The key is to stay focused on what's next, even when today feels insurmountable. So, ask yourself, how can you shift your gaze from the pain of the present to the promise of the future? In doing so, you align yourself with God's progressive nature, trusting that the best is yet to come.